I am so excited to be in this group today, sharing everything about making digital products for your TpT store, which is a really big, like overarching topic, but I'm going to take this from a Google perspective. And a little bit more about me. So I'm Adrienne Farrow. I'm a Google Tools specialist, and I help solopreneurs save time with Google Tools. So this is solopreneurs in general, but then also teacher authors. That was my first like niche that got me into the online business world. And digital products have a nice love in my heart. And so I still work on digital products, but I also do a lot of productivity things to do with Google as well. But my goal is like, I want to save you time and help everything be productive and efficient because you want to reinvest that time into what makes you money. So any hacks, tips, tricks, things like that that I can give you is what I aim to do. So, a little about my background. So, I was a teacher for 10 years, and I have literally, and I'm not joking, taught everything from kindergarten through high school special education in some capacity or another before I left the classroom. And I left as an education technology specialist. And it was really in the classroom where I developed a love for Google in particular. And I became a Google certified educator and worked my way up to being a certified trainer in 2020. And I actually was invited to the Google headquarters last year in 2023 to collaborate with other trainers. I got to see me in front of one of the many Google signs and just really learn more about how to use Google both in an education setting and then just like Google in general. So that is the background that I bring to the talk today. So I always like to talk about like why digitize your products in the first place, because digital products have a lot of different meanings. Some people say, well, isn't any product that you make on TpT digital because you're selling it like as a PDF? But really, when we're talking about digital products, we're talking about some sort of um, product that you can sell and pay teachers that is used usually in an interactive way online. So that could be through Google Tools, or also like Canva is now another one that is coming up and about. There are other interactive or digital products that you can use on other platforms. But I really encourage teacher authors to look at creating a digital interactive version of their products for several different reasons. One is, even though what I like to call the great digitization of 2020, even though that is past us, a lot of teachers are still using digital products in their classroom. And that can be for a variety of different reasons. One reason might be that their school district had a large investment in technology, and so they're still using technology in the classroom because it's now become woven into their school as a whole. Another reason might be because they're looking to save time and paper, because if you have a digital resource and you can assign it like on Google Classroom, then it's going to save you paper and copy credits. And we know as teachers, copy credits can be very golden things. But even more importantly, it can really save teachers time. I'm going to talk a lot about Google Forms kind of towards the end of this, and Google Forms, especially with the auto correcting aspect of Google Forms, can really save teachers like a boatload of time that you don't have to grade individual assessments over and over and over again. Another thing I like to say is it provides choice to your buyers. When you go into a store and you see just one option, if that option doesn't fit you, you're more likely to go and look somewhere else. And so if you have multiple choices that you're giving your buyers, so you say, here's a product you can actually print out and provide in your classroom, and then here's also one you can add on and put into Google Classroom, you're just opening up that field to give more options. And many teachers say they want to digital option. In fact, some even say they won't purchase a product without a digital option. So you're reaching a broader audience of teachers if you provide a digital option too. Another big reason is it accommodates different learning styles and preferences. One of the things that was really highlighted during COVID is that some kids actually learn better through a digital version, through an interactive version. Some need that text to speech element, and some of it is just, it's a preference. And I love this quote, and I think it really came about in COVID, is that tech gives the quietest student a voice. And sometimes there's some students who just bloom and blossom when they're given technology to use. And so that is just something to think about, especially as you're designing your digital product, to include a combination of audios, videos, images, and text. If you're familiar with universal design for learning, that's really a best practice because then you're reaching a wider range of students. So even if you have an image providing an alt text so that a screen reader can read it. If you have a text, maybe including an audio aspect to it, which I can show you how to do on Google Slides towards the end. But that's really best practices to kind of think about how can many students learn. And then, like I said, it's learning preferences. Some students prefer paper and pencil, and some students prefer technology. And it can be very empowering for students who struggle with their handwriting, their spelling, etc. We talked about adding choice to your buyers, but it adds value to your store and existing products. And if you add digital products to your store, you're adding something additional, which adds value. And I'm going to talk about here in like a slide or two, how to take your top products that you have in your store and create digital versions. I have a process for that. But the more you can add, the more value you can give, and therefore you can also charge more. So there's 3 ways to add value. One is that you can look at adding a digital component to a resource. So if you have a bestseller, you could look at just adding one component to it. And a self-correcting quiz on Google Forms is a great place to start. And I always recommend starting with Google Forms. And I'll bring that up here and towards the end. Um, and if you add that one component, you can see how it does, gauge feedback, and then you can look at increasing your price by about 5 to 10% because of that additional component of value that you added. You can then create a digital version, like an entire digital version of your existing resource. And this is something that I often do for teacher authors is I'll take their existing resource and completely digitize it for them. And I recommend starting with your top 5 bestsellers. So if you can find your top 5 bestsellers and look at digitizing them, you're going to increase the value tremendously because you're already having something that your buyers want. Then you're giving that extra option. And then you can sell that digital resource separately and keep the price the same. So you're offering a PDF version and then you're offering a digital version. And then you could look at bundling them all together so that you can include both the digital and the PDF version together, and you can increase about 15 to 20%. I definitely recommend having the separate and then it all bundled together. From my experience with various clients as such, it seems to sell quite well in that way because you're offering that choice just for those who prefer the PDF. You're offering the choice for those who prefer a digital version, and then you're also saying, hey, you can get a discount by getting it all together. And last but not least, they can be very fun and interactive. That's one of the reasons I love digital products the most. There's so much that you can do with technology that you can't do with paper and pencil. A popular digital product is escape rooms. Like if you can do those with paper and pencil, but it's going to be a lot more complex. It's going to have a lot more different parts that you have to do and things you have to print off. Escape rooms are a fun thing to do in both Google Forms and Google Slides. So it really makes that learning more engaging and interactive. And here are some ideas for what you can create with digital products that I have experience creating, and I know other sellers do as well. You can do self-correcting quizzes. You can do that on Google Forms. You can do an interactive notebook. That's a really fun one to do on Google Slides. You can do just a simple fill in the blank activity that can be done on Google, on Google Slides. You can also do one in Google Docs as well, or even in Google Forms. You could do escape rooms and really get fancy. And then pixel art is a fun one in Google Sheets if you are into kind of doing some of that coding background work. That's a popular one as well. So here's exactly what to do. Here's my step-by-step process. I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. So the first thing you want to do is to find those 5 top best-selling products. And then the very first thing to do is just add one digital component. Don't try and do the whole thing all at once because that can just get overwhelming. Just try and find one thing you can digitize. And like I said, I recommend a Google form. And then turn it into an interactive digital product. So then look at digitizing the entire component. And then you can sell that separately and as a bundle to maximize the value that you're giving to your buyers and also maximizing the amount that you can get in return. So that is the like presentation part, but I'm going to pull up Google Forms. I'm going to drop in the chat 2 different links. I have a Google Forms freebie. This is about different things you can create with Google Forms. Where is my chat link? And then I also have a product called the Digital Teacher Toolkit on Google Forms. It's a mini course that goes more into depth on how to create using Google Forms and has, I like to talk about gold, silver, and bronze activity and level of interaction. And that's gone over in that as well. And then here is a link to my Facebook group, that Google group as well. But like I said, I want to pull up Google Forms because I can talk about what to do, but it makes a lot more sense when you actually, start to delve into Google itself. So I always recommend starting with Google Forms when you're getting used to Google products. If you guys want to drop in the chat, if you could rate yourself on a 1 to 5, how comfortable are you with Google in creating things on Google? If you had to rate yourself. All right, 3, 5. Awesome, 3. Okay, kind of mid 4 to mid-level. Okay, awesome. How many, you don't have to type anything, you could just raise your hand. How many of you guys have created an asset in Google Forms? Something that you've sold on Teacher Pay Teacher in Google Forms. You could either raise your hand or not. Oh, yay, something to go into. So how many of you guys have done something on Google Slides? That tends to be a more popular one on Google. Yeah, okay. Anybody done anything on Google Sheets? Put anything on there? Okay, a couple of you. Google Docs? Google Docs, okay.
I have done Google Sheets, I have done Google Docs, I have done Google Forms, and I want to add to you what you said at the beginning. My top selling are the Google Forms
Okay.
sources. The 5 top are them.
So what do you have as your Google Forms? Like what are they quizzes or are they?
Basically based on assessments at the
Okay.
end of each unit, for example, or they can be used with any unit, with any reading comprehension. So I have like stories, like if they read aloud stories, that I create an assessment with them, and they're the top sellers, my top
That's
sellers.
awesome.
Would you mind
Awesome.
sharing the link again? Because I don't know what happened. I was kicked out
Yeah.
and I had to come back. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I thought I'd share really quick something I've done with Google Docs. I just recently did it. So my products are primarily for English learners.
Okay.
And so literally just did this week where I copied and put into a Google Doc form and then included the link in my product, a letter that goes home to parents where they can then easily get it translated in whatever language they need to. So in my product, it's a PDF and they can't change it, but in Google Docs, then they can copy and put it into a new document and have it more easily translated.
That's really cool. That's awesome. One of the things that I hear a lot on the Google Docs side is that is it because obviously on Google Docs you can copy and paste, and so the concern is more on the copyright side, and Google Slides tends to be used more because of the fact that you can embed things in the background and then they can't be lifted as much. Before I get into Google Forms, I want to show you guys one quick hack that sometimes some people know and sometimes some people don't know. But this is my training account that gets really gobbledygooked. If you go up here to share, I have to name. And I mean, as teacher authors, we're generally pretty familiar with the anyone with the link can view. Are you guys familiar with that for sharing Google Docs? Did you guys know about these settings up here at the top and this in the cog up here? So you can actually lock down a Google Doc even further. So you can make it so that if someone has a viewer or commenter, so it's on anyone with the link can view, you can disable the ability to download, print, and copy. So if there's ever something that you want to share that's like maybe teacher information or like a lesson plan or an overview, kind of like what you would do with a PDF, you can actually do within Google Docs and just remove that ability for them to make a copy, or you would be removing their ability to print, but that can also, you can give a PDF plus this one. So it's a setting that I don't think a lot of people actually know exists within Google Docs. Okay, so let's go to Google Forms. So Google Forms, the best way that I see it, I know I said that in my presentation, is to like find one asset in your product that you can make into a Google form and then add on, or even you can sell separately. And oftentimes that's going to be some sort of assessment or quiz, because the thing that Google Forms is going to do for a teacher is save them time when it comes to grading and assessments. And so when you're in a form, two things that you want to do right away. You want to go to settings and you want to go immediately to responses, and you want to disable the restrict to users. And the reason why I wish there was a way to change this from being the default, but the default is that it's going to restrict to users in your domain. If you're using a free account, it probably won't have that in there. I recommend if everyone uses Google Workspace, which is the business account, and there's a variety of reasons for that. But if you're using a paid Google Workspace, you're going to want to make sure that this is disabled. And then you're going to want to make sure that it's a quiz. And by making it a quiz, it's going to do a couple different things. One is it's going to give point values for all of the questions. And then you can also provide feedback automatically and choose what the correct answer is. And then it's also going to easily connect with Google Classroom for those who use Google Classroom. You can actually upload a form like this, and then it will automatically grade and go in Google Classroom and really make a teacher's life so much easier. You can set your default point value right here, and I highly recommend doing that before you get started, because that's going to make your life easier as well. It's easier to change questions like on a one-off basis than to like go through and blanket change the point value. The teacher on the other end, once they make a copy of the form, can change the point value, so they can adjust it as needed, but it makes your life easier as the creator. And then I usually turn these off because I like to keep them off versus on, so that the teacher can toggle the ones on that they want. Most of the time that the teachers don't want the students to see right away what the correct answers were or the missed questions. You can, this one I actually leave on sometimes, or because it's nice to see the total points as you're going through, so you can see if it's a 5-point question or a 10-point question or whatnot. You can down here make questions required by default, and that's also helpful as well. That way students have to answer all of the questions, and they'll get a little notice if they skip a question. But if you want to turn that off, you can. And then I like to go through the different options for the different quiz questions. So you have your multiple choice. With multiple choice, I like to do just silly questions like, what color is the sky? And then, oh, they don't give me great. So sometimes their suggested answers are great. Recently, not so much, as you can see right there. But oops, I can't spell. But you can have blue, red, green, whatnot. And then this is where it really comes in, that's super helpful for a teacher, is that you do the answer key. So you select the correct answer, and then you can give answer feedback here. And with the answer feedback, you can do one of two things. You can incorrect answer feedback. So if the answer is incorrect, you can say, you know, incorrect, try again, or that's not correct. But you can also link to maybe something for them to go review, or a YouTube video or something that you have. So you can give additional like review opportunities. Same thing with the correct answers. You can give a congratulatory feedback, and then you can also link to things if you would like to as well. So that multiple choice is usually what I recommend for teacher paid teacher author products, because then that's the quickest one to assess. Checkboxes can be assessed really quickly as well. You can do the exact same kind of answer feedback. Checkboxes would just be the student would choose more than one, or than just one. If you do short answer and paragraph, that's totally fine too. They just can't be self-corrected. So the teacher would have to manually go in and for the paragraph and mark that one as correct or incorrect. With the short answer, you can do some self-correction. The issue is when it comes to like spelling. So short answer, I really recommend are there any math teachers in the group? Yeah. So like math is great for a Google form, because there's usually one correct answer and it's numerical. So you can type that in. So here, if I did what color is the sky and someone misspelled blue, you would either have to mark that as automatically correct, but that would make any answer that is written differently than this correct. Or if you mark all the other answers as incorrect, then that can make it challenging for spellers. Yeah.
What I do with short answers, I give the multiple choices, so I leave it as extra bonus. That's for students that they need extra credits. The teacher just goes in and check those answers for these kids that they need just as like extra points. I give it as a bonus question.
It's a great idea. Yeah, great idea. So that's just something to think about there. You can add images. When I've done math related Google Forms, that's a great way if like you have any geometric like things that you need to show, or fractions or different things like that. You can show an image for the question as a whole, but you can also show it for multiple choice. You can put an image for each of the different multiple choice options. So I've done like which one is 1/2, and then taken fraction clip art and then put them in for the different multiple choices. And then you can grab those as well. You can also add just a text part here, and that's a great way of adding like a story or some sort of thing that they need to gather more information on, like based off of this passage, answer the questions below. There isn't a great way to do audio on Google Forms. The best way I have found is to do a video. And if you record a video with the audio for them to listen to, that's one way to kind of work around the audio aspect. There is an add-on called Mote, M-O-T-E, if you've ever heard of it. It can do audio, like it can read the different questions and stuff, but that would be asking a teacher to add, download or connect to something else, which I try and avoid doing when selling a product. Another thing to note here is you can do these like linear scales and multiple choice grids and checkbox grids. So if you're doing like an emotional, like an SEL kind of check-in Google form, you can use this for a linear scale, and you can determine if it starts at 0 or 1 and goes all the way up to 10, and you can give a label too. The only caveat with this is you can't do any other points other than the beginning or the end. So you have to just say which one is the highest and which one's the lowest, and then you can't give any other ones there. But you can also do a multiple choice grid where you can give options in the rows and in the columns, and then they have to choose one in the column that matches the row, and going however many down you want. So if you have multiple things that you want to assess for in that's great. One thing that I want to go over, and then open it up for any kinds of Google questions. When you share a Google form, you will need to do two things. Are you guys familiar with how to make a forced copy of Google form? Sure, Mervat is. So when you make a forced copy of a Google product, if I were to make a forced copy of this Google slide, what I would do is I would go to share and I would make sure this is anyone with the link can view, and I would copy the link, and then I go up to the URL bar and I would delete this edit part here at the end. And then you can either use the word copy, which makes this screen show up, which is great when you would put this URL in your PDF for someone to click to make a copy of. I like to suggest to do this more than using the TpT uploader. That way you have more control over your products. There has been times the TpT uploader has been down or the connection hasn't gone through. And if the person's able to download your PDF, you're in charge of your link. And the more I feel like you can have ownership of your own links and products, the better. The other thing you can do is do template preview, which I love. And the reason I love template preview, it's the same thing. You just delete the end, and instead of putting copy, you put template preview. And this way they actually get a preview of whatever your product is, so they know that they're on the correct link. And whenever they use the template, it will, making a copy, like making a forced copy, will add copy of at the beginning, and a template preview will not have copy of. It'll just give you the full name. And I find that that's really, really useful. Google Forms is a little bit different. So you actually have to start at the folder level. So if I'm making this a test form, you go here to a folder, and then I'm just going to, I'm actually going to open up Google Drive here, and I'm just going to make a whole new folder, and I'm going to say just August 5th for right now. And so if I move this Google form into the August 5th folder, I actually need to make the August 5th folder anyone with the link can view. And the reason behind that is that we actually don't have that option with Google Forms. The only option Google Forms gives us is either editing or restricted. And you don't want to give editing access, because in case the person accidentally gets that link, they could accidentally get in there and edit your form. And so you go here to share at the folder level, and you go share, and we change from restricted to anyone with the link can view. And that'll make anything in that folder anyone with the link can view. And we can see that that has changed. The sharing settings has changed because we have the little people right by it. And now that that has been changed on the folder level, we actually grab this URL up here at the top. And then we change that last word either to copy or to template preview. And then now we have the, do you want to make a copy of the test form? Or you can say template preview. And then now they can actually see the test form. And this is the why I like template preview, is that you can actually get that clear visual. So that's also something really important to know about Google Forms, is that you have to make sure it's shared properly. And I will actually drop this in the chat too. I have a YouTube video that walks through exactly how to do this. And that way it's an easy thing to refer back to. So I'll drop that in the chat as well. And then there we go. And then the last thing I also wanted to share is Google headers. When you customize your form, you can actually customize, like they've given you a lot more options to customize your form now. You can actually customize the font and go through any of the Google fonts. But this header, you can choose an image, or you can actually create your own on Canva or Google Google Drawings. But the reason I like to point this out is you can use this space here to actually give more directions or to give more information. a seller that I worked with, I created a bunch of this day in history forms. And so we had a little image of whoever was being highlighted for this day in history, and a little blurb about that person up here. And so it actually saved some room in the form itself, and then also helped to personalize it as well. But you can really get creative in your form by creating some great headers. And I think you can now just search for Google Form headers in Canva, and they'll give you the size. But I actually have a freebie, I have to find it, but of a template that you can use in Canva or in Google Drawings.